over on YouTube now in a second. Okay, so I should be appearing on YouTube too. If you guys are watching this in the restream afterwards, then just scroll down and click the comments and you'll be able to find timestamps for particular things that we talked about. But I'm going to go ahead and do the today's fun little discussion about Irish language culture and all sorts of stuff like that. So let me see. I wanted to start with a couple of videos. So let me see what I got for you here. If I can get it to work. Essentially, I got a thing ready to play my videos here for you guys. And that way, while people are getting their questions ready, you can see some of the fun stuff that I've worked on over the years to share the Irish language and culture with the world. So first, here's a really fun one. So, hopefully the sound is coming through okay on this, and I'm going to turn it on here. There we go. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I look forward to you continuing to ask your questions. Holly's going to be passing them along to me.
Welcome to Dublin, Ireland. When here, you are of course going to encounter some lovely Irish people. We're famous for our hospitality and our Celtic culture.
It's true.
To us, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet, so we'd be happy to chat with you. Of course, everyone in Ireland speaks English, but did you know that Ireland's official language is actually Gaelic? Still a European language, but very different to the other ones. It can hugely enhance your experience in Ireland if you speak it. You'll read it in bilingual signs all over the country, but to hear it spoken, you should head west to the beautiful Gaelic areas.
And if you're just joining us, I can see, look at this, I can see your comments coming in. And Holly's also passing me along everything that she can. So I'll be doing essentially answering questions, discussing the Irish language, culture, St. Patrick's Day, anything you don't know about that. And then every 10 minutes or so, I'm going to show you a video that'll give you a couple of other insights. So this video is one I made about 5, 6, 7 years ago, actually maybe 10 years ago, about Ireland. And I dressed up as a silly Irish leprechaun. So let's continue seeing where it goes to give you some basics of the Irish language.
Even if you only speak a little, we'll be happy to hear you and give you a hand. The pronunciation based on spelling is a bit different to English, but is extremely consistent, so you'll get used to it quickly. The language flows beautifully because of the differences that seem hard at first.
There's me.
Just try these simple sentences. Conas atá tú?
That's me in Donegal.
How are you? Cuma agus tú féin?
Give me some basic Irish sentences.
Well, and yourself? Sláinte. Cheers.
I'm laughing at some questions coming in
Slán.
that I'll be getting to shortly.
Bye. Even when not in Ireland, you can learn a lot about the language over the internet. And there are many resources online that can help, which I've linked to in the video's description. Once you have a bit, you can practice by entering your Facebook or Twitter status of Gaelic. Like I could write, I was in Dublin today. If you take every chance to learn a wee bit, you'll be speaking it in no time. So what are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. Slán agus gnéirí leat. Bye and good luck.
And that is the first video I wanted to show you today. I figured that would be appropriate since I'm dressed up in my St. Patrick's Day leprechaun gear and that. So I got loads of questions coming in. Over on Periscope, for instance, we have Posme and definitely an Irish understanding question. I thought you'd be watching the rugby today. Happy St. Patrick's Day from Cape Town, or Paddy's Day from Cape Town. So yeah, there's a very big rugby match today. I don't follow rugby so much, but one sport I do follow a lot in Ireland is Gaelic football. You guys may not know of this, but it's kind of similar. I'd say, if I had to describe it briefly, it's more or less like a mixture between rugby and American football and soccer. So it's got a kind of features of all three, but it's in its own unique spin. And that is what I played more when I was growing up, is Gaelic football. Even a bit of basketball, to be honest, because there's like a little bit of dribbling that you have to do with the ball while you're running with it. So yeah, there is a big rugby game that a lot of Irish people will be watching today. Okay, next question is from Charlie Baker on YouTube. Does everyone have to wear green on St. Patrick's Day, or is that only in the US? That is only in the US. Traditions for St. Patrick's Day between the US and Ireland are extraordinarily different. So over in Ireland, like, people will wear green. They'll wear St. Patrick's Day costumes, but this isn't some kind of thing that is expected, that they think they have to do. Whereas I remember once, my first time in the US, I just happened to not be wearing green on St. Patrick's Day, and someone pinched me, and I nearly whacked them so fast across the face that they'd fall down and hurt themselves. But I practiced restraint, and I'm very proud of myself for practicing that restraint. And they do this thing that I only know of from The Simpsons, essentially, that if you don't wear green in America, you get pinched. And as you can see, I am definitely not promoting that, even though I live in the States right now. I'm not promoting that interesting tradition, but that is not something that we do in Ireland. I'm not really sure why that started, but it's a quirky little tradition, I suppose. And I'm getting wished La Ela Pádraig Sonadich Aveni, says Marcia, and that is wishing me a happy St. Patrick's Day in Irish. Much appreciated, thank you for that. Thank you also to Fella Day for wishing me a happy St. Patrick's Day. And what else are you guys saying? Claudia says, I think your country is amazing. Thank you very much for that. I have a couple more videos of... let me show you one more, actually, while I'm waiting for your comments and questions to come in. Now you guys have an idea of the format we're going for here. So this is another video that I did a very long time ago in the earlier parts of my the history of my blog. And this is where we're going to be in Donegal in the Gaeltacht, and I wanted to share a week of my experience also learning the Irish language, and you'll get to see a little bit of Irish language and culture. So enjoy this video and keep your questions coming. Okay, let me turn back on the video, and here we go.
No matter where I go in the world, I always come back home to Ireland. And Glencombe is definitely one of my favourite places here. The scenery, for example, is just amazing. But what mostly makes this region special is the presence of the Irish language and culture. They really flourish along with beautiful traditions. One of these traditions is, of course, Irish dancing. I signed up to the Language and Culture Week at Idges Gael, and one of their cultural courses includes teaching traditional set and other style of dances. For the language aspect, we had interactive classes in the morning tailored to our particular levels in Irish. It was a great chance to be able to practice with others. The people you meet at the course are what really makes it special, and each one of them has their own story of why they're here.
So, Jessica, cén fáth bhfuil tú ag fáil an Gaeilge anseo?
Anseo bhfuil tá Sara Gaeilge chláiste tá chláiste freibil maine cé agus bhfuil bheith ina múntóir go. So I'm just anseo bhfuil chu Gaeilge a dhéanamh sa táú.
Cén fáth bhfuil tú anseo?
Tá anseo mar is máil Gaeilge.
Okay, céáis duine a bhíon i rang gachléon. Gná scoláirí agus tí dónam go mín is a cógadí go dagan siad cad bheith sa siúram agus bíti dóach agus sin éiste beidir ná dean túirí sa rang gachléon tú go ná agus bhfuil tú tanbas tú gachléon ag gcóir
In the evenings, we had some outstanding music and singing performances from traditional musicians from the region and from around the country. A lot of the cultural aspect of the week also included learning how to play the instruments ourselves. But the music, or ceol as we like to say, would not be complete without the crack. So each evening we would all go down to the village's local pubs. But sadly, our amazing week together had to come to an end.
Tána trína leis an seach an seangaús cultúr agus bhí an crack againn. So cá ceapan tú frí seachtain sin.
Bhí se campus í hinnta cebislána a bhúirtain sí tal bhhaid.
Oh, right. Okay.
Bhí seachtain go hinnta a sí dearastásla. Tá a daoine go le campus. Imagine an a product there to got
And that's it. That is my little video about my experience spending a week in the Gaeltacht. And I saw a question come in from Elijah Thompson on Facebook. Before I get to that, a relevant one that was just coming up at the moment at the end of the video there was from Mao Gorzata, Goshka, friend of mine, on Facebook. Have you tried Irish dances and do you like it? So, I don't know if you noticed through the subtitles, and maybe you might have recognized at the end of that video, you would have seen the President of Ireland at the time, Mary McAleese. I danced with her. I danced a traditional Irish set dance with her when I was there at the Gaeltacht. And part of learning about the Irish language and culture at an event like that in Donegal, which by the way is where this picture you can see here, this lovely bay here, that's in the same area of the northwest of Ireland where they still speak the Irish language. And part of that week isn't just teaching us the language, but also the culture. So we play some musical instruments and we do a little bit of hill walking to get to know the scenery nearby. But we also, of course, learn Irish dancing. And I know all of my Irish dancing from going to these regions of Ireland. And it's always such a lovely experience. The one I would know the best would be the set dancing. So with set dancing, you have 8 people, so 2 and 2 facing each other, and 2 and 2 facing each other, kind of in a square format. And they tend to go in and out, and you would be holding the other person like there are different ways to hold them, maybe like this, locking your arms, and you do little spins as well. Because that's the one I would know best. I know when people think of Irish dancing, they imagine something like the river dance, and that's also, of course, a very prominent style of the Irish dancing, but I wouldn't be able to do that myself. The set dancing style is one I can do, and I enjoyed it so much that I made sure that for Lauren and I, when we got married, and we got married in Dublin just over a year ago, we actually made sure to have some teachers come in and teach the family some Irish, because there was a lot of Americans coming over to teach them some true Irish dancing. So absolutely, Irish dancing is something I've a particular interest in. So thank you for that question, Goshka. And then Elijah on Facebook, you were asking, is there a difference between Irish and Gaelic language-wise? Very good question. I actually plan to do a video on this in more depth at some stage, but in general, and it's confusing for me, especially like how I can manage this, because when I tell people that I speak Irish, they imagine, in America at least, they tend to imagine what I'm doing right now, this second, is speaking Irish, because they picture the Irish accent that I put on my English as just Irish, the same way as they would think of themselves as speaking American English. I mean, I don't know how they would think of that. But anyway, Irish is, of course, the name of the language in the Gaelic family. So that's the language that you were just hearing in that video that had to be subtitled because you would not have understood it. The language I'm speaking now is Irish English, or more technically Hiberno English, to use the right Latin adjective and so on. And of course that's just English with my accent and with a couple of interesting different words that I might use every now and again. But Irish is the name of the language we speak in Ireland. We do not call it Gaelic. So Gaelic is actually a kind of a language branch, because when you think of the Indo-European languages, like imagine you have a tree. No, that would be more of a pyramid, I guess, if I'm starting here and working down. An upside down tree wouldn't survive very, very long. But imagine you start here and you... And just to remind everybody, today we're just talking about the Irish language, and I'll be very happy to answer many other questions. I do general language learning questions on the on my other YouTube channel, so that's youtube.com/fluent in 3 months with 3 written out as the word. And there, subscribe there, you will get my general Q&As that I'll be able to answer any questions on your mind. But I like to do things specific on my other live videos like this one. So just back to the question. So you have the Indo-European family, and that includes everything from some languages in India through the Germanic languages like English and German, and the Romance languages like Spanish and French and so on. That also includes the Celtic languages. Okay, so the Celtic languages is then a branch off. And it's different enough, like it's still a European language. We still use the European writing system, but it's quite different, so you're not going to be able to understand it. There might be an odd word here or there, but you're very likely not going to understand it. At least you can sometimes see words written down and maybe understand them, but the vast majority you won't, unless you have experience with the language. So that's Celtic, and Celtic in itself splits off again. So I forget the name of the language family, but the language spoken in the northwest of France, which is Breton. I don't even know how you're supposed to say it in English, to be honest. Breton, I don't know, but Breton. I actually lived in Lannion, in that part of France, for a whole month, and curiously enough, there was a little village that had the same name as the town I'm from in Ireland, Cavan, although they would have pronounced it Cavon in French. But anyway, that is part of the Celtic language family, and it's so far removed I didn't understand any of it. Then Gaelic is another subset, and Gaelic includes a couple of languages around the British Isles. One of them is Scots Gaelic, which does include the word Gaelic in the title, and then another is, of course, Irish. Now, you can say Irish Gaelic, but that's kind of a little bit... that's kind of like saying, it's like putting the category after the thing. It's like saying English Germanic or French Romance. That's what it's essentially what you're saying if you say Irish Gaelic. It's like you're saying the actual name of the language followed by the branch it belongs to, which is a very weird way of talking about it. So, in short, you just don't use the word Gaelic whenever you're talking about the Irish language. You can say Scottish Gaelic to talk about the language that they have in Scotland, which is mutually intelligible with Irish. But Gaelic is kind of more the language branch. If I really want to make it clear to people, what I tend to do is say Irish and then put in brackets Gaelga, because that's the name of the language. That's kind of like saying French, brackets, Français. Spanish, brackets, Español. So that's what I tend to do, so people don't get confused and think I mean Irish English. And yeah, so that hopefully answers that question about the differences between Irish, Gaelic, and so on. Irish and Gaelic, I should say. So I will be doing a video in more depth for that. So, okay, another question coming in from Holly this time. What is the story behind the traditional Irish font in Ireland? Where did it come from? That's a very good question. I do remember I read something about this, but the Irish font, it just has some kind of, it's got a historical significance. It's just how we've always written the language. And you will see when you're in Ireland that we have bilingual signs, because Ireland is officially a bilingual country. Now, practically, that's less of the case, unfortunately. Most people just do not speak the language. But officially, Ireland has the Irish language that has to be in signage. It has to be in any law, has to be translated to Irish. So the signs you will see, the English name of the street is written in a very boring font, and the Irish name is written in the Irish font that we have. And one part of that is that I guess makes it more visually stand out, is that it used to have dots over the consonants, and it made it look a little bit more like a more distant language than it is, which it's still very distant from English. But the dots were replaced in the 50s with the letter H. So previously the letter H just didn't exist in that font, but something that you'll see if you see any of my videos about Irish pronunciation, then you'll know the H kind of does change some of those sounds. So on that point, I want to show you a video or two on Irish pronunciation, and then I'm going to get back to your questions. So keep the questions coming, very much enjoying them, but let's go to the next video here. And this video I literally just recorded and uploaded yesterday. So it's only a minute long. Have a look.
Hey everyone, in this very quick video I wanted to give you a crash course in the most important rules to keep in mind to pronounce Irish names correctly. So, rule number 1, if you see an accent over a vowel like this, don't be intimidated. It just means it's elongated. For example, Tomás. Rule number 2, in Irish the letter C is always pronounced like a K, even before an I or an E. For example, Ciarán. Rule number 3, the letter S sounds like in English most of the time, but before an I or an E, it sounds like an SH, as in Sinead. Rule number 4, some vowel combos make particular sounds that are unexpected, and the hardest one of those is AO, which makes the E sound as in Aoife. Rule number 5, in some words, one or two of the vowels when together may not be pronounced. And I can't get into why right now, but at least you know the reason when you find out that the letters in red are silent in the names Kira, Podrick and Oisin. And finally, rule number 6, an H that appears after a T or an S will just sound like an H, as in Blahi. And BH or MH sounds just like a V, as in Siobhan. And that's it. This list of rules is intentionally oversimplified, so watch this 5-minute video.
Yeah, and then I point at things that you can click at in the original. So I just uploaded this this morning, and that gives you a very quick overview. And if you have the chance and you look around my channel, you'll actually see this much longer video. I won't play the whole video now, but I just want to give you a little teaser. This video is done very well.
Hey everyone, Benny Lewis from Fluent in 3 Months
This
here.
video's already got
As you may know,
half
I'm Irish.
1 million views.
That means that I would love to encourage you today to learn the Irish language. But as well as those, you also have long vowels.
So I go. You can hear.
Sean, Seamus.
Give more examples. I go into more
It's
detail.
exactly like in English.
But what I really want to show you in this video is this part
The
here.
words flow together nicer. But the thing is, it creates letter combinations that might throw you off. The good news, though, is they all have one thing in common: the letter H. So just keep a couple more pronunciation rules in mind when you see these letters with the letter H after them. And it's not as bad as it looks. So, for instance, SH and TH both have the same H.
That's the one
sound
example
like
I gave in the
English
short
H.
video.
So that gives you words like Cahill or Blahin. PH is the F sound, like in English or French, and FH is silent. But looking at the tricky ones, CH is the guttural sound that you might know from the word loch. And DH and GH could be a similar but kind of different sound, which you would know from the Irish way of saying hello. Gaelic. So don't worry too much about that though, because in names they tend to have the much
So I won't play that for too long, because that's a longer video, and you guys are more than welcome to check that out on my channel. I think actually if you just search YouTube for Irish pronunciation of names, then I think it comes up first, because it's done very well. If people enjoy it, they watch it all the way through, and YouTube's algorithm says, oh wow, this video seems to answer the question people are asking, so let me show it to more people. And I definitely appreciate that. Let's get back to your questions. And I know I didn't know the full story behind the Irish font, but I just wanted to give you that sidebar that the letter H used to simply not have a version in the Irish font, and so I wanted to show you that little thing about it. And yeah, keep all your questions coming. I'm seeing Unicorn Cake say hi over on Mixer. I'm seeing on Periscope a couple of your questions. So for instance, Ja1969 on Periscope says, can you recommend us some Irish music with songs in Irish? Very, very good question. So it's tricky, because like I can recommend them, but the actual how you would actually find them is where things get a little difficult. Because there are lots of songs I do like to sing in Irish, and I should actually make a little video of some of my favorite songs in Irish. What the problem becomes that we have lots of traditional songs in Irish, but we don't have so many pop songs that tend to be sung in Irish. Now, I believe the Corrs have a couple of songs that they just sang in Irish. I know a couple of other pop groups might have one or two, but ultimately, when you want to hear more traditional Irish music, it doesn't tend to get as popularized. So downloading it or listening to it on the likes of YouTube is a little less likely. But what I can do, because I do really like that question, I want to kind of give you guys a much better way of finding songs in Irish. I'm going to compile a list of my favorite songs, and I'm going to try to share that at some stage. So if you're not subscribed to me yet, make sure to subscribe or follow. I'm streaming this right now, the same one video, on YouTube, 2 Facebook pages, Twitch, Mixer, and Periscope. So I'm seeing all your questions coming in, but you either follow, or you like, or you thumbs up, or you heart, or you like punch the screen. You know, there are lots of different things you can do, but do that, and then I know you like this video, and I can definitely go into more detail for recommending particular songs. But for instance, my favorite song is I think it's Glantin Glas Guidor, and this is a song I've actually tried to sing myself, and let me see if I've got that. I think I actually have on stage the moment that I tried to sing it. If not, I can grab it very fast, because I've got my YouTube channel right here, and I'm able to re-download the videos, which is a cool little trick if you guys ever do that. So yeah, I want to show you just a very quick. I'm not the best singer in the world, not unless I can like edit it very, very strongly after the fact. But let's see. This video is actually not about Irish, but it is a video where I sing in Irish, in a particular part of it. So just downloading it to show you, and keep your questions coming in the meantime. And here it is. Or no. There. Okay. It's downloading. So this video is one I actually made about my experience learning Esperanto. And while I was there, I had to share Irish culture, and the way I did that was by singing a little song on stage. So I don't know how much I've cut out of this video, how much it'll be worth the wait, but let me bring that up for you and just skip past. You can see I used to start my videos, I really liked using the Google Earth zooms into the part of the country I'm in. This was Bratislava, and I transitioned between the thing and an actual clip. So I really liked to do that. And so let me go past. These are everyone up on stage. There I am. So this is just a moment. And let me show you guys me singing this song about Gweedore, which is a part of Donegal. And I happen to just really like this song.
Got to learn about other cultures, and I even shared my own with everyone. The week was
Probably not worth the wait, but that is what a particular song I really like in Irish. It's about the sorrow someone feels as their family or themselves, I forget which, are emigrating to America. So, but it's a very heartwarming song, and that's kind of answering that question for you. So let me see. I know a bunch of your questions have been coming in. Back on Periscope, Jan 1969 again had asked, how is Welsh related to Irish? Welsh, if you remember what I was just describing, the Celtic language family. So Welsh is not a Gaelic language. So the Gaelic languages, if I remember correctly, are Irish, Scottish Gaelic, and Manx, I think. Holly, you were looking into this recently, and I know you would confirm that. I think those are the three of them. Because I haven't investigated much of the other Irish languages, I'm not as directly familiar. But Welsh is not in the Gaelic family, but it is in the Celtic family. So one thing, Holly confirmed that I'm right on that. Manx is a Gaelic language, but Welsh is, I don't know the name of its sub-branch, but it is among the Celtic languages. And so what that means is when people speak Welsh, unlike when they speak Scottish Gaelic, where I can really follow quite a lot of that. That's kind of like Spanish to Italian or Spanish to Portuguese in terms of similarities. But when people have spoken Welsh, I just cannot understand anything. What I've understood is if they point out specific words without saying them in the context of a sentence, I understand a couple, not a whole lot, but there's a few. I'm like, I recognize that word because it's the same in Irish. And then one thing Welsh does very differently to Irish is the thing that I showed you in the video where we add the H and that changes the sound. Welsh is a more phonetic language. So, for instance, as an example, the word for dog in Irish is madra, M-A-D-R-A. The word for my is mo, M-O. Now, if you're saying my dog, you might think that that's going to be ma, madra. But that's not how it works. Because of how the Irish language flows, we have this thing called lenition that changes and the M becomes an MH, which in this case is a W sound. So it's actually mawadra. And that MH, you might think to yourself, why can't Irish be more phonetic? That's dumb. But I actually like that because it means you can look up the word in the dictionary and you don't have to understand completely the full rules of lenition as you're learning the language. And you would see the M-H-A-D-R-A like written down, and you would just ignore the H and look it up in a dictionary. Welsh, on the other hand, is more phonetic. So I don't know what the Welsh word for dog is, but if it was the same, they would write it with a W instead of with an MH. And that can be great in terms of you see how it's spelt and you just say it, and there's a lot less complicated rules of how two different letters work. But they did not do the thing that we did in Irish, which I actually genuinely think makes the language a little bit easier to learn, even though the phonetics are a little harder at first. So, Holly tells me that Welsh, Cornish, and Breton are Brittonic languages. Okay, there we go. And, here we go. Irish, Scots Gaelic, and Manx are Gaelic languages. So, the distinction there, I'll have to look into more detail in future to see like how all these language families branch off and such. Yeah. Okay, so continue with your questions. I am. Let me see what I missed here so far. Okay, so Marcia Aguero on YouTube asks, how willing are native speakers in the Gaeltacht to speak Irish with Irish learners? I'm at a lower intermediate level and would like to go to the Gaeltacht to improve my Irish. Okay, So it's like anything. It's if you and guys, keep your questions coming. I'm catching up on the old ones, but definitely keep them coming. And I want to talk a little bit about St. Patrick's Day as well. It's not just the Irish language and culture, and even a bit of Irish history to get into St. Patrick's Day. So any questions you have on that, I'm going to try and cover them myself, as well as sharing some nice videos. Just want to make sure you guys are enjoying this. But yeah, back to the question from Marcia. If you go to the Gaeltacht, it's like anything. You find people and you can speak with them, but people are busy. They have to go to their day jobs and such. So what I found worked, initially I wanted to do what I had done with other languages and just go there to the country and try to make friends and slowly but surely use the language that way. But because of how where the Irish language is spoken tends to be in villages, in places with small populations and not so many young people, it's a little bit harder to just arrive and start integrating into the community. So what I would recommend for you is doing the same thing that I did, and that is to go to that intensive adult immersion course. So it's a course that you pay for, but then once you're in it, you do get that immersion experience. And it's not like you're just studying all day. They have a couple of Irish classes, but then they have the cultural side, and you get to go and play music and sing and dance and all those things. And then in the evenings, because the town is so heavily populated during the course weeks, which tend to be in the summer, you do go to the pub and just socialize with everybody. But you're also socializing with other learners. And you know what? I'm Irish myself, but I have been most impressed when I go to these villages. I've been most impressed by the non-Irish people that I run into. I have met people from China, people from Africa, people from South America who come all the way to this village, and they make me ashamed of my Irish level because of how much they have learned and how much they've mastered the language. So I go to the local pub, and I don't even drink. I'd have an orange juice, but I'd be at the local pub with these guys in the evening, genuinely socializing. And I say this with every language. When I started learning Spanish, I learned a ton of my Spanish from non-native speakers who were the Erasmus exchange students. I learned a lot of Spanish from French, Italian, German students. So it's kind of like that with the Irish language. You can learn it with other learners, because the native speakers, they won't be impatient with you. In fact, we have this saying in Ireland, is far Gaeilge bhrista ná bearla clista, which literally means broken Irish is better than smart English in the context of the Gaeltacht. So when people speak Irish, we're so used to so few people knowing the language that when they try to use it, they make mistakes because they're learning, and it's going to be broken. There are going to be grammatical problems and so on. And do you know what? You will never get any level of criticism for that. That's people just know you are trying to learn the language and they appreciate it, and you're not going to run into problems. So I highly recommend you give that a chance. Okay, so let's see. Zach on YouTube had asked if I understand Welsh, Manx, Breton or Cornish, and thanks for punch the screen. So I think I addressed that. I don't understand any of those languages. I think there are words that when written down I will understand those specific words, but as a sentence flows, very, very unlikely. Okay, next question is from Holly. Where does the look of the Irish come from? So this is another one I want to make a video about because I've enjoyed talking about this. I actually gave a speech last year at a very big event, and I talked about how people can find luck, and I talked about it from a more statistical perspective because my background, I studied lots of probability, so I have a very dry way of looking at luck. And so when people say luck of the Irish, what they don't realize is the source of this expression is not what they think it is. So it's not about good luck, and it's not even about irony. And you might think maybe I'm talking about the fact that the Irish history has been quite unfortunate when you think of the famine and a lot of other things that have happened to the Irish people maybe it's said with a hint of sarcasm, but that's not it either. So I want you to imagine something, okay? Imagine there's a guy in the 1800s, and he realizes that he just can't make it in Ireland, and so he's going to emigrate to America. And his family is dying, so he's a very certainly an unlucky guy, but he's determined. So his family is dying, and his friends might be coming with him. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of people died on the ship over there because of the unsanitary conditions. So people would have died over there, and like he's made it to America, and like he's strong because he's gone through the journey and he's had the resolve to have to leave his homeland. But then once he gets into America, he starts seeing signs that say no Irish need apply, because initially Irish people got a very cold welcome in America. If you guys have ever seen Gangs of New York with Leonardo DiCaprio, that kind of sense of like anti-Irishness was originally like, people are so friendly with me in the States. I have never met any kind of anti-Irish feelings, but that's the 21st century for you. So now imagine this guy dealt with all of that, and he realizes even in his first stop on the East Coast, he's still not getting any luck. He's not finding work. He's hungry most of the time. So, but he's so determined. He goes all the way to the West Coast. He hears about this gold rush. He gets there. He tries to find gold like everyone else, and he still doesn't find any gold, because people put in a few hours, they shake the ground a little bit or whatever they do, and he still doesn't find gold. But he's so determined. He's like, I'm going to work twice as hard as these people. And he does that, and he works longer hours. He goes to harder places because he's already come so far, and he finds gold. He strikes gold, and this is the reason he's done that. It's not because he's lucky, but because he's determined, because he doesn't give up, and his story has told that. Now, imagine this happens, this story I've just told you, imagine this happens multiple times, because the Irish people coming over were going through such hard times that they were, if they survived, they were extraordinarily determined. So they were more likely to find gold. And what this meant is that people, the rest of the people in California were seeing the Irish people coming and finding gold, and they were calling it like a kind of a very negative connotation as just like these stupid moronic Irish, you know, the only reason they get gold is because they're lucky. And they say it with like jealousy and anger, and it's actually got that negative connotation, which is frustrating when you think of how determined those people were. So that's kind of where you'll get a little debate on this, but I've looked into it and I found a lot of sources agree luck of the Irish came from this sense of even like these fools just find gold because of pure luck, and that's where it comes from. So it's not the kind of thing that you would want, like in its original sense, that you would want yourself to have this luck of the Irish, because you might think, oh, I'll like scratch a scratch card and I'll win $10,000, and my great grandfather was Irish, that's the luck of the Irish. Not quite. That's kind of the luck of the Irish implies you're stupid and you're winning despite your stupidity. And obviously this is not a very lovely sentiment, but that is the origin of luck of the Irish. And yeah, I think it's ironic given when you think of all of the hardships that would have gone through. Like, not nowadays, I don't have any kind of similar hardships to what the Irish would have had in the 1800s. But 1800s, early 1900s is where the expression came from. And the reasoning behind it is just ridiculous. And do I consider myself luckier than most? I don't believe in luck as most people understand it. We have a saying that in Ireland as well, that every man makes his own luck. And I truly believe when it comes to luck, that's just understanding the randomness of the universe, taking more chances, making more mistakes. And I think that's the one thing that I have over other people is I have, through lots of trial and error, I have learned the hard way to just keep on making more mistakes. And I have built up a certain resistance to failing So if I'm learning a language, I will sound like an idiot for a long time. I will say something I really should not have said. I made such a stupid grammatical mistake. But then I'll be like, oh well, and I'll keep on going. And I think that has led to a lot more success. I think people who don't tend to have as much luck, sometimes there's a lot of factors in play here. And there are things that I can't control that I am lucky about. Being white and male, for instance, give me a lot of unfair advantages, absolutely. And being born into like a family that would mean I'm not dying of starvation. There's a lot of things that are just pure dumb luck. But I think on a day-to-day basis, when people think about finding opportunities in their job, in their life, in their love life, all these things, there are aspects people can control more than they think, but they got to take chances and they got to fail. And I think the ability to fail is where maybe a little of this luck factor might come out of. So hope that answers your question. All right. Next is Elijah on YouTube saying, how different is St. Patrick's Day as celebrated in America compared to Ireland? Countries do things a lot more different than where they originated from. Okay, so my experience with St. Patrick's Day in Ireland is in the US is pretty limited, but essentially I know they do the parades here. One thing is, I think the reasoning behind the holiday. A lot of people think in the States, they think the purpose of the holiday is to celebrate your Irishness, and everyone is Irish, and they think the theme is drinking, and that's what you do to prove your Irishness. And if that's the purpose in the States, that's the purpose in the States. I would almost call it two different holidays, because the purpose in Ireland is actually originally very different, and even to this day, St. Patrick's Day is a religious holiday. And the origin of St. Patrick is that he was a British, more specifically a Welsh person, not an Irish person. He was a British person who I think it was pirates actually kidnapped him and brought him to Ireland, and he was essentially like sold into slavery. So this guy was originally from Britain, not Ireland. But over time he learned the language of the locals, and he actually, when he was free, he went to, I think, Rome. He went to essentially to the Vatican, and he became he learned about Christianity to preach it. He became a priest or whatever the equivalent was back then, and then he went back to Ireland to introduce Christianity. So he's the patron saint of Ireland, even though he's not actually originally Irish. He represents everything about Ireland, and he was not born or raised in Ireland. But he did spend enough time in Ireland to understand the culture and the people. And there's a lot of metaphors. So pictures of St. Patrick, you tend to have pictures of him driving snakes out of Ireland. And it worked, because we just don't have any snakes in Ireland that I'm aware of. But that's a metaphor, because the snakes represented the pagan beliefs, and he was introducing the wonderful Christianity that would have driven out the evil devil. And depending on how religious you are, I'm only saying this out of the imagery that was involved. And that's kind of the origin of St. Patrick. So in this day, these days for us, it is a religious holiday. We tend to have the time off work, and you actually have some pubs that are closed, not on necessarily the day itself, but people it has to align with, at least outside of major cities, the pub closing times would align with when the church has finished, because the priests started complaining about people who may have started celebrating a little early and then going into the churches. So it's more centered around originally that religious side. But of course, people drink in Ireland, and that's just something that happens when they have time off, and they do it, and they can stomach more than people can in other countries. And that's kind of the association people they take. They miss the fact that it's a religious holiday. They have it off, so they celebrate, and they just kind of skip ahead and be like, oh, they're drinking a lot. That must be some central part of St. Patrick's Day. It's like St. Patrick invented beer or something. So that's kind of a quick like actual origin of St. Patrick's Day for you in a nutshell. Essentially, when we're like in Ireland, we do have the parades, which I know have made it to other countries. Dressing up in green, not necessarily, but I know like the parades tend to showcase local communities, and anything can really get in a parade. We even had like a single goat, and I am not making this up. We have a single goat representing like one person's little company, and that was its own little parade contributor. And I do not think I will see that here in the New York City St. Patrick's Day parade. So hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing that little background about St. Patrick. So as you get your next questions ready, I'm only going to be online for another like 15 minutes more or less. So I wanted to, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes to get through these next couple of videos I wanted to show you. So first, back to how we speak in Ireland. I wanted to show you a little bit about how Irish English actually sounds. So when I'm speaking now, I am actively, because I realize I have an international audience, I have people who are learning English and maybe want to understand what I'm saying easier. I intentionally make sure I'm easy to understand. So I do not say a lot of things that I would normally say if I was speaking the way I would with other Irish people. So this video is going to show you a little bit about what Irish English actually tends to sound like, with some examples I wanted to make as natural as possible. So I hope you enjoy this.
Well, top of the morning to you. Just enjoying a nice bowl of me Lucky Charms, and then I'm heading out for a pint of Guinness. Who wrote this rubbish? This isn't Irish English. I want to make a video about how we actually talk. Class, haven't heard from this gobshite in ages. Well, lad, how's you cutting? Sure, I'm grand. I'm just after starting recording another one of those YouTube videos. Wished well, yeah. I am singing in this one. Anyway, I've been fierce busy. Haven't had any time at all. Yeah, I know. It's well for some. I shouldn't be giving out. Sure, it's savage crack. I'm lucky I got to use these expensive yokes to record with. Come here, how's your man? All set for the leaving? Radio's caught mention. Egypt. Told him not to be bold, did you? That's gas. And yourself? Deadly fair play to you. Okay, so I'll pop over for some dinner sometime then. Savage. Give us a bell then, grand so. See you now. Now, where was I? Right. State of the shite script here. Sharp bloody spaz who wrote this. Authentic me arse. Do another one then. Hold on. It's still recording. Heck. Well, hey, make sure to subscribe and click somewhere to see my other Irish videos. And yeah, whatever. Cheers.
So that's just a silly little video that I made when I was I really wanted to express how different the English that we speak tends to be from what people might expect. Let me just increase the size of my thing here. And Andy's saying great video with the inline translations. Yeah, glad you enjoyed that one. Okay, so a few more of your questions, and I might have time for one more video. And yeah, you guys didn't have as many questions today, so that's totally fine. I just won't be hanging out around as long, because I did want to make sure I answered as much as you guys had to say that was relevant. You guys might have had other questions, but again, make sure you subscribe, and I'll be talking about other language learning topics. I'll be talking about topics specific to whatever you want, so general topics over on my other channel. But yeah, follow, like, subscribe, thumbs up, heart, all that fun stuff. And check out my channel. You'll be able to see these and a lot more videos. Holly said, aside from this stream, are you going to be doing anything special to celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Yeah, I'm going to be spending it with friends. And I'm very, so we'll go out and probably go for a couple of drinks. And again, I don't drink, so it'll be an orange juice or a Coke or something. But we will most certainly not be going to an Irish pub, because I think they will be completely packed today here in the States, and also what makes them Irish is very different from my feeling of Irish pubs, because we, like the last time I was home in Ireland and we went to a local pub, it was very cramped and you're very close to people. Music can break out at any second. Whereas in the States, they have very strict fire marshal laws about the number of people who can be in a single space, which I totally understand and agree with. It's very safe precaution to make, because if there's a fire and people start running out, they'll fall all over each other. But we don't have that law in Ireland. And because of that, Irish pubs tend to be very, very packed, and that's part of the experience. That you're like, it takes you 10 minutes just to get from one side of a room to another, just because of how slow you go through people, and you interact with more people that way. And finding a place to sit is always a challenge. So it's a very, very different experience. And I will not be doing that in an American Irish pub, but I will be spending time with friends. So that is something I will be doing, but generally I if possible, I try to see if I can make a little bit of the parade. But anytime there's a parade here in New York, I've learned the hard way, like the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade and the St. Patrick's Day parade, the amount of traffic and the difficulties to get somewhere to ultimately see maybe just a little bit of one of the floats they have. It's not, I mean, you have to get there early, and the people who do that, who appreciate it, good for them. I don't think I have the level of appreciation that would kind of counterbalance the amount of effort to get to those places. I don't have the same level of enthusiasm, so I don't tend to see the St. Patrick's Day parade here in New York, although I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure it would be an interesting experience. Maybe someday I'll go to a friend's house who would have a view from his apartment or something like that, you know. All right, so next couple of questions. Jesus Luna on Facebook has one about Ireland. I believe Ireland's divided into two parts. Could you tell me the reason? So yeah, it's super complicated, but essentially we have when we say Ireland, just that one word, is actually a geographical term. There's no politics involved. It's just the name of that big lump of rock that is the entire island with no separations within it. So that is Ireland. And that's technically what Ireland means. But what a lot of people mean when they say Ireland is actually that island minus a chunk of the north. And that is the technical correct term is the Republic of Ireland. So the United Kingdom included Ireland for a very long time. So the full title for multiple hundreds of years of the United Kingdom was the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. And so Great Britain is also a geographical term, not a political term. Great Britain is the name of the very big island that includes England, Wales and Scotland. And so Great Britain and Ireland represent both of those land masses, and that was the United Kingdom for a very long time. And so how that came to be is complicated. I won't get into it. But in 1916, Ireland got its independence from the Republic of Ireland got its independence from the United Kingdom, and so became its own independent nation. So we just celebrated 100 years of our independence 2 years ago, and part of that was involved a lot of things like giving an official status to the Irish language, because one of the reasons the Irish language suffered so much is that you couldn't get a job in a place like Dublin if you spoke Irish, because people who would tend to run businesses there and own land there were the English speakers. And so in schools they just didn't promote the language. It would do you bad. It would not help you if you spoke the Irish language. That helped its decline a lot, and it pushed its decline so much that even when we got our independence, it was a very long road to getting it back up to even the level it is now, and it's still a further road ahead. And unfortunately, when people started learning Irish or teaching Irish, they did it far too academically, and it kind of that method pushed it away. So that's kind of like where we were, like in 1916, got our independence. But the for various reasons, the separations are both political. So you have the people who wanted to stick with the United Kingdom and were true to the Queen, and people who wanted to stick in the Republic of Ireland and maybe they liked the Irish language. So you had those political separations, but you also had religious separations. So people who were Catholic would tend to be gravitated towards the Republic because that remained Catholic. People who were Protestant tended to gravitate towards the United Kingdom. So for various reasons, in Northern Ireland, 6 of the counties were remained with the United Kingdom, and that was Northern Ireland. And nowadays, the United Kingdom's full title is United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Okay, so that's kind of where the origin came, and it's very complicated and messy, and there were troubles that we had, as we call them, for many decades, and it's mostly like it's a messy mixture of that political thing and then the religious side of it, so like Catholics and Protestants butting heads against each other. And how silly that is like something else that you could totally discuss that I won't even get into today. But that's kind of the origin of, like as shortly, briefly as I can, of what Northern Ireland and Ireland separated off into. And nowadays, it's you wouldn't even know if you're driving from the Republic into Northern Ireland. The only way I ever realize it is my phone sends me a text message to say I'm roaming with another network now, because the border that used to be there has gone. Like parts of it have been the European Union as well, kind of removing its borders, and how that's going to be affected by Brexit is yet to be seen. But that's kind of just a few random things so you know about the Northern Ireland and Ireland situation. So in Northern Ireland, they are United Kingdom. They use the British pound, and in Ireland we use the euro. And in Northern Ireland, you will actually still find the Irish language. You'll find a lot of very proud speakers of it. So, yeah, I hope that helped. It's a very complicated and messy issue. Hopefully nothing I said is offensive or controversial. I don't think so. I tried to just keep it strictly to the facts just there. But yeah, there you go. So, let's see what your other questions are. Matt Toussaint on Periscope, can you say something in Welsh like St. Patrick would have? No, for so many reasons. Firstly, I don't speak Welsh. Secondly, even if I did speak Welsh, to speak it like St. Patrick would have. St. Patrick was around in somewhere like 300 or 500, the year 300 or 500, and the language would have been so dramatically different. I know I met someone once who studied ancient Irish, and the Irish they were learning was 1,000 years old, which is way younger than when St. Patrick was around, and it was extraordinarily different. The same way English is extraordinarily different over the ages. How Shakespeare spoke it is very different to how anyone speaks it nowadays. So sadly, I can't help you on that request. Okay. Elijah, how hard would it be to learn Irish from taking up Portuguese? Oddly enough, a couple of things from Portuguese actually, just by pure randomness, have parallels in Irish. So in Portuguese, the word for day is dia, D-I-A. And now that same word exists in Irish, and it's pronounced the same, dia. But it means it's the word for God. That's why when you see people say hello, dia gitch, it's a harder sound. But that gia is literally God be with you, and that's where our word hello comes from. But you would know that from Portuguese, because that's actually how you pronounce that. And another one from Portuguese that, at least Brazilian Portuguese, that is just a random thing that happens to be the same, is in Portuguese, I find in some parts of Brazil, they don't tend to use the words yes or no, sim and não. They don't tend to use those as much. they tend to repeat the verb of the question. So if you ask someone, você fala português? They're gonna likely say, falo, or não falo. That's kind of something that you tend to hear in those responses. They will repeat the verb of the question. Now in Irish, we actually, unlike Portuguese, we don't even have a word for yes or no. There is no word for yes and there's no word for no. We represent those by repeating the verb of the question. This is something that exists in other languages too. In like in Mandarin, there's no word for yes or no. It works the same way. So if you ask someone like I don't know, a random question, on will to in Erin, are you in Ireland? Then I would say tá, and that means I am, or Neil, I'm not, and I'm not actually saying yes or no. And this influences how we speak English. People from the countryside especially, they don't tend to speak to say yes or no in English. They'd say, oh, I am, or I haven't. And that interesting influence is kind of something that just randomly happens to exist in Portuguese just for various reasons. At least Portuguese that I've come across. Okay, Julie Adams asks, is there one area of the country that speaks what's considered neutral standard Irish? No, definitely not. So there is an Irish that you will hear on the radio and TV. It's kind of like our broadcast Irish, and that's the closest thing I would say to Irish. But it's usually a mixture, or they have to, like, more often than not, they will pick a dialect because the dialects are different enough that the differences make them stand out. Generally, there is Ulster Irish. This is the one I've tried to put more energy into since I'm from that part of Ireland, and that is spoken in Donegal. There's Galway Irish, and then there's Cork Irish, and there are other versions, of course, but those are the big three you tend to hear about. And then there's an even newer one that it's spoken by young people that gives a little bit more wiggle room in using English words, and you would hear that even sometimes on the radio. But yeah, there is no one place that people pick a standard Irish. Generally, Irish books take a collection of all of them, and there is no one version of a standard, but they would kind of incorporate them as much as they can. Okay. So Julie Adams says, with your accent in English, when you say Ireland, it sounds like Ireland. What Irish English accent do you have, Dublin or Northern? So yeah, if when people say the name of the country here in America, they tend to say Ireland, and that like adds in this whole extra syllable essentially from my perspective, and I say it like R-O-O-R-U, Ireland. I don't know if there's a reason behind that, just how we represent particular vowel sounds, I guess. But what accent do I have? I'm originally from a town called Cavan, C-A-V-A-N, which is 2 hours northwest of Dublin. And the accent I have is not quite a Cavan accent. I actually had to go to speech therapy when I was growing up, and that meant the stronger parts of the accent from where I grew up didn't incorporate into my speech as much. I most certainly did have aspects of that part of the country in my accent, but then that got combined with the fact that I traveled so much and had to speak in international English around the world, so I didn't really I kind of watered down my accent even more. So I think this is the accent I speak is an interesting, like, kind of not as strong accent, but it's not really from one place. It's more a result of my lifestyle, if that makes any sense. Okay, and final couple of questions before we wrap this up. I'm glad I've been you're welcome, Julie. I'm glad I've been able to answer you guys' questions. Okay, so Andy Roberts had a question about if I've done any research into Celtic cultures over the centuries. I have not, so I can't speak to that. Holly asks if you can tell where in Ireland someone's from based on their accent. Absolutely. There's very, very thick parts of the accent from, for instance, the north of Dublin that you'll hear generally if you get a taxi from Dublin Airport. Your taxi man is very likely to have this accent. I can't even imagine trying to mimic it. It's so difficult to mimic. And it's such a strong accent. You guys can understand me as I'm speaking now. But it's such a strong accent. When Lauren was with me in Ireland for the very first time, and we got a taxi man and I was talking with him, she honestly thought I was talking to him in Irish because she didn't understand anything he was saying. But I was actually talking to him in English, just that his English is that difficult that people just didn't understand it. So you would definitely know someone's from Dublin, someone's from Cork, has a very specific accent. And my own ear for specific counties wouldn't be as great, but each part has its own twang, as it were. Even where I'm from, definitely there's a what we like to call a Cavan twang, and I don't have it myself, but it is recognizable for a lot of people. So yeah, that is what I wanted to cover today. Let me see that I have one final video I wanted to share with you guys before I wrap this up. I showed you that. Yeah, I guess I'll just show you the start of this. This is a video I just uploaded very recently.
Hey everyone, Paddy.
Let me turn on the thing here. So this video I just uploaded 2 days ago. I'll show you the first half a minute.
Fluent 3 months here, and I'm coming to you from New York. And when a friend of mine was in town, Thomas Frank, I wanted to do a video with him. And the idea that I had was inspired by a video I saw once with Hugh Laurie and Ellen, where he gave her some typical British expressions or words, and she had to guess what they meant. And so I did the same thing with Thomas, except for Irish words and expressions. So let's see how that went. And with the St. Patrick's Day week around us, I wanted to talk a little bit about Irish expressions, and I want to see if you can guess their meaning. Okay. And I'm going to give you examples and everything. So, the way of saying I'm after. Okay? I am after.
Like after the person in front of me or something like that.
Exactly. But in an expression,
I'll just show you this one example.
I'm after finding €1 on the ground.
Okay.
So what do you think that could mean?
You're after finding €1, so that's like your goal right now? That's your current thing you're trying to do?
Good guess, but completely wrong.
Okay.
It's another way of saying I have just.
Oh, okay.
So I'm after finding €1 on the ground. I have just found €1 on the ground.
Gotcha.
So that's just one example. You guys see I took the inspiration from the Hugh Laurie and Ellen interview, and I gave a couple of interesting Irish words. So that is a video I just uploaded 2 days ago on my channel, so check that out. And you can see below, if you're not on my YouTube channel right now, go to benny.tube, T-U-B-E, and subscribe and like this. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you found it interesting, and I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Thanks for watching, everybody, and you will see me, I'm sure, in more live videos. Of course, I really like doing these. I like talking with you guys and sharing stuff, and I hope you enjoyed the format of today's unique video where I answered questions and showed you random videos. So I'm going to wrap it up there, but thanks everyone for joining me, and happy language learning.